Hey guys, and welcome back to another YouTube video. In this video, we're going through the Geelong versus Port game on the Friday night, the earlier of the two Friday night games. There was the Swans, Freo Swans game was a very, very late start, an 8:30 start on the East Coast. Ended up finishing like 11:20. Way too late to start a game, even though I know it's on the West Coast. Just give them a Saturday game or something. A Saturday mid-afternoon game that is still like a 1 o'clock start for them, because the late night games for them don't really work. And I know that they wouldn't have any prime time games, but it's just too late to finish, honestly. But anyway, before we get into the video, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload, and let's get into the video. So, Zach Guthrie, 104, I don't remember too much, I switched off at halftime because I obviously switched across to the other game, but he had a really good third. I don't know if I watched this on another monitor when the Swans game was on. I might have watched a little bit, but didn't really notice Guthrie that much. So probably shows his impact on the game, and not really going to be a fancy relevant option given that he's averaging in the 80s, well, probably 80 now. Holmes, 101. He's averaged all right. I just think that there are better defenders that average more, that get Seagull the ball a little bit more. And yeah, for fantasy purposes, sort of 98 average. He's in and around the top 6, so he's not necessarily the worst selection. But I just think that it's going to be sort of Dacos is going to jump above him. Already is above him, but he's going to jump further above him. You got Nick Martin, Whitfield, Hayden Young had a really poorish game on, it was more Supercoach than fancy that he had a poor game. But you got so many options there that are probably a little bit sort of iffy, I would say. Less iffy than Holmes. And so I would just be probably sticking clear of Holmes at the moment and not necessarily number one trade in the defensive half. Myers, 90, I think he's one of the forwards that I would be looking at, actually, if you had to look at forwards, given he's just producing every single week. It seems like a 90-odd average is going to be close enough to top 6 if Zorko and stuff lose their role. So I think he's in and around the mark. Duncan doesn't really have any impact. Atkins, Cameron Parfitt, Blickarves, we can literally just go straight down to the list. Stewart here is 64, got held, and he is just having a really poor fantasy season. Going to be like in the mid-80s, and I just don't think he has much fantasy relevance now that they've got Holmes back down there. So yeah, I think he's taking slightly more of an accountability role, and we saw this similar with Sicily. And yeah, I just think that Stewart's fantasy days are probably numbered at this point, given that he's on the other side of 30 now. I believe he's 31, Tom Stewart, so let me just double check that. Yeah, he's 31 already. So given that next season he'll be 32 basically by the start of the season, I probably would think that that Stewart probably doesn't end up in my fantasy side ever again. That's just because you'll have, I think, Dacos might qualify for defender mid status next year, but you'll have guys like, I think Sheezer will qualify for it or get close to it, and also all the injury guys in the back line that we'll have coming off like ACLs that you'll pick before Stewart. Colin Jasny, Guthrie I think is one that could be interesting, but also I think he's getting old as well. I think he's getting on. Cam Guthrie age, I think he's like 29. No, he's 31 as well, turning 32 in August. So he's one as well that I think is done. So we'll be waiting for the new crop of Geelong players in the next little bit, even though they are sort of, I think that their positioning now, I think is a little bit inflated given all the players here that they've got, and I think their players are starting to burn out. So yeah, Guthrie I think is done fancy wise. Hawkins close, O'Connor, Rowan, Dempsey as well had a pretty poor game of 49 as well, so just sort of starting to really slow down his. Clark got off to a really good start and then slowed down quite dramatically at 35 first half, and I thought, maybe he gets like a 70 or something and starts to really gain value. Nope, just a 44 for him. So he's sticking around that 300k, and honestly, he could be an option next year, priced at like, if he continues on and gets another sub or two games in, if we do see some retirements here from Geelong, He could honestly be someone at 360k or somewhere around that mark, or maybe even less, 300k, that you can almost just go, yep, I want him. But then again, you're going to have rookies that are probably better scorers than Clark, who probably is an 80 scorer at best when he gets the role. Mullen came on and I thought he did pretty well, but then again, is it going to really have much fancy relevance given that he's averaging as well in the 40s? Maybe next year, if he can actually get some good game time. And then Ollie, Henry and Stanley came off really, really early, tactical sub, as he was just horrific, and also they were just way too tall. Then we move on to Port Adelaide. Ollie Wines, huge. We knew this was probably going to happen, but it just sucks that everyone had traded him out, or most people had. And so, yeah, 133 from him, average of like 95 for the year now. So he wasn't necessarily the worst pick out of the bunch. So just shows there were some merits behind the pick there. He just sucked in the games when he actually was played out of position. And I'd need to check the CBAs, which I'll do whilst talking through Butters and Horne-Francis. But yeah, Wines was really good throughout the day, as you can see. 25-25. The second half he slowed down a little bit, but did the job in the first half to get the really big score. And then we move on to Butters here, and Butters was all round just a really good player throughout the game here. You can see a low of 21, a pretty slow second half after an 80 first half. He really got going in the first. But yeah, he just pops out for those really good plus sixes that you see. You'll see here, I think, if I just go over to AFL Fantasy, Butters here, and yeah, what a selection, 107 average. He's been really good, and you can see the 9 marks really catapulted his score. I think they contributed to here a rough estimate of 9 marks, probably 52, 51, somewhere around that. Set of browse attendances I have clicked on here. And yeah, you can see here that Ollie Wines attended 21 of the probable 33 CBAs. So that is roughly, that stinks of about 21 divided by 33, 63% of CBAs. That's not the greatest role, to be honest with you, but I guess it's all right given that they do have a top 4 midfield, sort of a big, strong 4. So yeah, that's not necessarily the worst from Wines, and the role is sort of there, but it's just, there's probably better guys out there that have the full role in them. But as we talked about, Horne-Francis was huge late from memory. If we go here and it wants to lose, only a 23 in the last. I thought it was actually better than that. But yeah, he's just really impactful with every touch, and when he does go like a 113, it's sort of game breaking. Drew 101. He did all right. If this wants to load yet again, here we go. 32, 14, 23. Houston did a lot late, but was really inefficient with the ball. It actually says that he didn't do much late. He was on 57 at half time, but it was a really inefficient 57, and then a 25 third, and then only a 15 last. Well, he actually did a lot in the last, but then again, I wasn't necessarily keeping an eye on this game as much. Rioli, Burton, Bloke, Mead, Farrell, Vizentini, I thought was pretty good in the ruck, especially in the early second quarter here. He got off to a flyer here, and in the third quarter as well, so ended up on a 71. So for those that did bring him in early, he did get some good points, but I wouldn't be surprised if he is the one that drops for Sweet next week, or else we're all stuffed. Burn Jones, Finlayson, Sin, Georgiades, Marshall, Lee, Radigalir, Cirque Thatcher, Dixon, McEntee, and I don't know who this is. That Francis Evans down the bottom. Not much more relevance out of that Port versus Geelong game. But anyway, that pretty much is the video going through the Geelong versus Port, in which Port upset Geelong, or maybe this is just the fact that Geelong, I think, had a relatively easy run to start the year, and they're starting to catch up with those, or get beaten by the teams that are up near the top of the ladder. But anyway, that is the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.